Welcome to our first day of the experiment known as online learning. Obviously, when we started this semester, we didn't really anticipate that it was going to come to the point that following the midterm, we would never be in the same room together. Um, but let's see what we can do. Um, I know that this is kind of an experiment and unanticipated for all of us, both you and me alike. So we can exercise some patience with one another as we try to navigate these waters. Um, so I think that I have a plan for us to go forward and complete this course without really missing any of the material that historically has always been covered in this course. And so I want to start first by saying this is unfortunate. I'm really bummed. I think it's really only been in the last 2 or 3 weeks that people have really started feeling comfortable in class, raising their hands, saying, Jim, you got to slow down, or explain that again because you just went off on a tangent. And it's a drag because now we're back to this totally new environment. I also want to emphasize that in these really weird times that we're in, that keep things in perspective and make sure that you're taking care of yourself and the people that you're around. Take all the concerns seriously. Let's come out on the other end of this and be able to look back and just say that was an interesting piece of history. So definitely take care of yourself. If anything comes up, and this is just a kind of a blanket thing for the remainder of this semester, if you feel as though you want to or you need to just take an incomplete in this course, we can finish it next semester. And so in the fall, the course is offered at 11:15 in the morning, and then obviously in the spring semester, it's offered at 10:10 or whenever it is that we meet. And we can even be flexible if that doesn't work into your schedule. The point is that that's on the table. If you feel as though you want to take an incomplete, what we'll just do, whether you take an incomplete, at any point from here on out, we'll just assume that at the midterm is when we'll restart things. So keep that in mind, especially if you feel overwhelmed, because maybe I think that it's a big assumption to assume that everybody has readily available high-speed internet, for example. And maybe some people are just like, I don't want to do this. I want to take a class with a human being in front of me instead of a computer screen, and I totally respect that. And so I just wanted to put that out there so that way you don't feel like if you don't feel comfortable in this format, taking an incomplete, there's no harm, no foul there. So that's just something to have on your radar. Let's see here. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is that I really do love this class. And I really like trying to at least exude some kind of an enthusiasm for things that most people think are pretty boring and dry. And for me personally, I really like statistics because you can understand what you can do with data and you can make inferences. And if you actually understand it, as opposed to just knowing how to push buttons and use it as a tool, I think it's very empowering, and you can not only be skeptical about what you hear, but you can also, understand things so that the scientific method and the scientific literature is much more transparent. And that's even if you're reading something about maybe you don't know the subject matter that much. If you understand the statistics behind it, at least you can get an idea of what's happening. And so this class is really, I call it my baby, and I really like it. And this is such a drag now, of course, that we're doing it this way. But again, it'll be an interesting experiment. So I do have a pathway forward for us to get through the rest of this semester. First, I want to point out that we're actually way ahead of where we normally are in this class. And I think that is a consequence of the fact that I'm handing out my lecture notes. This is the first semester I've ever handed out those documents. So you can imagine how much slower the class went when I would have to write everything on the board, give people an opportunity to, write it down in their notebook. And then, of course, because there was no hard copy of it, it would end up being a lot of confusion, and it really slowed things down. But this fall, I decided I was going to start handing those out, largely because I suspected that it would increase the speed at which we can cover material, but also because my notes were kind of ready to be looked at. The notes that I've been handing out are quite literally the verbatim notes that I had written on legal pads for semesters after semesters. And so there was a lot of kind of, adjustments that needed to be done there, like, I don't know, make sure sentences had verbs, stuff like that. And so the point being is that now that I've been handing those things out, I think that has greatly increased the rate at which we're covering material. Normally for the midterm in this class, we will have just had finished simple linear regression. And we've already gone through multiple regression, model selection, and most of categorical covariates or predictors, classical ANOVA or ANCOVA type stuff. We've already gone through that. So I would estimate that we are about 3.5, maybe even 4 weeks, probably 3.5 weeks ahead of where we normally are. Which means that we can really slow down, because this is going to be awkward because I'm not going to be able to read the audience and know, like, if people are looking confused about something. We can slow down a little bit and finish to where we would normally, in a normal year, we would have finished. The thing that's a bummer about the fact that we're doing this and that this has happened is that I was kind of all primed and ready to do like 2 weeks on multivariate and maybe a week on Bayesian modeling. And I don't know if that'll happen. We'll have to see how this goes. If we have the time to do it, I would really like to do it because it would be fun to do. Right, and so the plan forward. Again, we have about 6 weeks to cover roughly what would be 3 weeks of material, which means, again, we can go nice and slow. We need to finish out general linear models, which we are almost done with. I will certainly make sure that we do a little bit of reviewing so we can remind ourselves how to interpret dummy coding and how to interpret the parameters in that model. Following that is what are called mixed models, or random effect models. And that is one of the more challenging things that we're going to be doing for some people. But I think that over the course of, if we take 2 weeks on that, if we slow it down a little bit and we just kind of really baby step way our through of how not only do we understand what we're trying to do, but also the code is a little bit different. It's just a little bit more complicated. It takes a little bit more thinking, careful thinking. I think that we'll be able to get through that. And then the final thing is what are called generalized linear models. Recall that what we've been doing up to this point are called general linear models. They're called general linear models because they accept both continuous and categorical predictors. They're linear models because no parameter is multiplied by another parameter or serving as an exponent for another parameter. Generalized linear models, with the ED at the end, are models where we're not constrained into having to use a normal error structure. So up to this point, all the models that we've been building, we've been really careful to try to make sure that the assumptions of the model are met. And the assumptions of that model are that the leftover variation of our data are normally distributed. Recall that we like the mean to mean what we think the mean means, so that way it'll mean what we want it to mean. That was all based upon a normal distribution. What we'll find when we do generalized linear models is that we can use other types of error structures. So we're going to revisit our old friends, the binomial and the Poisson distribution, for example, and we're going to explore models where that is the appropriate error structure as opposed to a normal error structure. And so those next two groups, the mixed models and then the generalized linear models, that pretty much is where the class usually ended. And so those two modules, I think that we're going to be pretty easily, we'll be able to get through. And maybe we will be able to play a little bit with multivariate, which I would like to do. And so what do we have? The path forward then is we have, let's think of them as 3 modules. One of the modules is general linear models, which we're almost done with. One of the modules will be mixed models, and one of the modules will be generalized linear models. So I think that we're going to be able to get through that. Here is going to be what I'm going to try, and if anybody has any suggestions or if something works really well in another class, please don't hesitate. I might not listen to your advice, but I would really like it. If you have an experience in another class where it's like, the professor's doing this and it's really working out really well, let me know, please. Because I'm totally unprepared. Well, yeah, I'm pretty much totally unprepared this particular format. And so the strategy is going to be is that I'm going to do lectures in this kind of a format. And I'll probably do, there'll be small little vignettes. So I'm imagining that maybe there'll be 2 or 3 a week, but it might end up being more because I might find out that it's easier for me to do a 7-minute little vignette on one topic and then do another 7-minute vignette on another topic. Still kind of working that out. But the strategy will be is that I will post the lectures, and then during our normal class period is when I will, and I'm going to work on this, and this is all the learning curve, it'll be just like a big Zoom kind of meeting. And it'll be an opportunity if you have any questions. So I'll be treating it very much as an open office hour. So if you don't show up and you're able to follow along between both the notes and the small little YouTube or whatever vignettes that I'm going to be doing, there's no reason why you should feel obliged to necessarily have to log in. And so my strategy will be that they will not be lectures. They will just simply be open office hours. If you have any questions about the material that I'm posting, you can either do that via Zoom, you can ask those questions, or you can email me the questions, and then I can, on Zoom, I can answer those questions. So we'll figure out how that's going to work. Yeah, and so right now, today is basically just a test, and I want to make sure that first of all, people were able to see this, and it's going to look something like this is how I envision it. So here's our friend R in the background, which I'm sure you all miss, and here it is. I will be in the lower left-hand corner. Obviously, I'm not a video blogger. I'm not necessarily that comfortable or terribly skilled at doing this. You can note the reflection on my glasses, which is probably a bad thing. I'm wearing a hat so I don't blind you with my head. But what we'll have is it'll be set up kind of how it is in class. So what I'd like to know is at least if some of you would be so kind to, through Canvas, just respond, and I want to make sure that you can read the text, that you can read the R script. Because if you can't read the R script, it's not going to do us much good. And so what I imagine doing is it'll be just like in our class when we do it is, for example, I'll pull up a quartz window and then I'll say, where the heck's my quartz window? And I'll be like, oh, here's my quartz window. And then we can go ahead and I could run some code. Look at that, I'm making art with R. I'm putting the R into art. And then we'll see where we can go from there. And so the idea is that there'll be short little informal lectures like that, and try to go through as small vignettes like this topic to this topic to this topic. I will probably try to, I will try to make the code that you are given to be very stripped down. What I might even do is I might have lecture code, and then I'll just have a stripped down version of code. Because a lot of times with that code, I include silly things like that. Oh, like that. I gotta get that. That's pretty cool. And I think that we can try to make this work as efficiently as possible. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact either myself or Tyson. Tyson is also planning on doing the lab meeting or the office hours via Zoom. We're still working out exactly how that will look. I have used Zoom, but I've only been on the receiving end of Zoom, so I've never been on Zoom in a situation where I'm in charge of the show. I really, honestly I haven't really used it that much. But we'll figure it out. It'll be an experiment. We'll figure it out together. We'll both be on this wonderful journey of discovery and how to use Zoom together. Okay, so again, if a few of you at least could send a response and let me know whether or not you can see the writing here, that would be great. And expect something from me sooner than later. And what we'll do again this week, let's consider this week to be just an experiment to see how this works. So the first little vignette I do will probably just be a really quick review as to what we covered before the midterm, and maybe I'll go over dummy coding one more time, just as an experiment, and then we can finish up general linear models. Okay, that is all. Stay healthy. Cheers to you, and let's see how great we can do it. How great we can be at this. It'll be interesting. So take care.